Namostute. O Srimad Bhagavatam, O my only friend, O my companion, O my teacher, O my great wealth, O my deliverer, O my good fortune, O my bliss, I offer my respectful obeisances unto you. This is from Sanatana Goswami's Krishna Lila Stava. So thank you so much for inviting me here to Bhakti Center. We'll read from this verse. Srimad Bhagavatam, 9th Canto, 6th Chapter, 27th verse. The chapter is called The Downfall of Saubhari Muni. Rajatad Yagya Sadanam Pravisto Nishitar Shitaha Dristva Sayanam Vipranstan Papo Mantra Jalam Svayam Rajatad Yagya Sadanam Pravisto Nishitar Shitaha Dristva Sayanam Vipranstan Papo Mantra Jalam Svayam. One more time. Rajatadyagya sadanam pravisto nishitar shitaha dristva sayanam vipranstan papo mantra jalam svayam. Word for word. Raja, the king, yuva nasva. Tad yagya sadanam, the arena of sacrifice. Pravistaha, entered. Nishi, at night. Tarsitaha, being thirsty. Dristva, seeing. Shayanam, lying down. Viprans, all the brahmanas. Tan, all of them. Papo, drank. Mantrajalam, water sanctified by mantras. Svayam, personally. Translation. Being thirsty one night, the king entered the arena of sacrifice, and when he saw all the brahmanas lying down, he personally drank the sanctified water meant to be drunk by his wife. Purport by His Divine Grace Srila Prabhupada. Yagyas performed by brahmanas according to Vedic ritualistic ceremonies are so potent that the sanctifying of water by Vedic mantras can bring about the desired result. In this instance, the brahmanas sanctified the water so that the king's wife might drink it in the yajna, but by providence, the king himself went there at night and being thirsty, drank the water. Let me say some prayers. Agyanatimanandasya Gyananjana Salakaya Chaksun Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobhistam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupakada Mahim Dadati Sapadantikam Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prestaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swamini Namine Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Sunyavadi Paschatya Deshatarine Mukam Karoti Vachalam Pangolangayate Girim Yat Kripastamaham Bande Shri Gurun Dinatarinam Vanchakapatarubhyascha Kripasindhu Bhaivacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Shri Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shri Vasadi Gaura Bhaktavindam Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Rama Hare Hare. Thank you all so much for being here. In this verse, in the purport to this verse, there's a phrase that's used by providence. Wise people are able to perceive the destiny factor in ordinary circumstance, and even in so-called mishaps or so-called accidents. In one of the upcoming verses, the Brahmanas all exclaim, "Alas, the power of providence is real power. No one can counteract the power of the Supreme." So this king was so thirsty. Reminds us of Maharaj Parikshit in the first canto of Srimad Bhagavatam. He was also so thirsty. He approached a sage who was deep in meditation. And although he shouldn't have, right? He asked for water and the sage didn't respond. And this prompted anger in Maharaj Parikshit. So King Parikshit did something he should not have done. He took his bow and he picked up a dead snake, wrapped it around the neck of the sage, and he left. In this 9th canto of Srimad Bhagavatam we're reading today, this king also has a strong desire. He has a desire to have a child, but he's unable. So he goes to the forest with his 100 wives. They're all very morose due to their childless situation. But the sages in the forest are kind to them and help them out and perform an Indra Yagya so that the king can have a son. But then this strong thirst prompts King Yuvanasva to drink the water that was meant for his wives. So what's the result? Not what they planned for. But things seem to have worked out anyway. The son is born from the lower right side of the king's abdomen without a mother. The son is crying for breast milk, and the Brahmanas are unhappy with the outcome. But then Indra comes and he gives his index finger for the baby to suck. Nobody planned on that, but it all seems to work out. So even this seemingly bewildered King Yuvanasva, after being blessed by the Brahmanas, he goes on to perform severe austerities and he achieves perfection. So alas, destiny, right? So we also get so mired up in the complexity of the here and now, the he said, she said, what's to be done, what's not to be done. And in Bhagavad Gita 12th chapter, Lord Krishna explains what those who are dear to him, what they do. And he says something so profound. He says, my devotee who is not dependent on the ordinary course of activities is very dear to me. And then he says, he by whom no one is put into difficulties is very dear to me. So the question is, how do we get from here to there, right? How do we get to that place of becoming dear to Krishna? Can we step back from the pressing nature of the situation? I was thinking kind of like a painter who has to do to get a perspective, stepping back from the canvas to see at a vantage point. Oh, this person's hand I painted is too long, or this tree I painted over on the left is leaning over too much. So stop, take a pause, take a breath, reassess the situation from a vantage point of perspective and decreasing the tight grip of my attachment in the heat of the situation. Give myself some space in a mood of some detachment. What will please Krishna here? What's the message that Krishna is trying to send me in this situation? Am I struggling too hard to get what I want here? Is what I want the best outcome for all concerned? Could I possibly be striving for something that not as favorable as I might think for myself or for other people? Could what I'm striving for possibly be the worst possible outcome? On the path of bhakti, we're trying hard to see the hand of the Supreme Personality of Godhead moving behind all things, trying to be vigilant, trying to be open to receiving even those tiny messages. I'm going to give you an embarrassing example. The other night we were over at Gauravani's house for dinner, and his wife Vrindarani gave me a container to take home of some delicious creamy dal that she'd made. She put coconut cream in it, and it was so delicious. So I was tired. It was late when we got home, and I went to bed. And while I was lying down, I was thinking, did I put that container away in the fridge? But I was so tired, I forgot that thought, and I just fell asleep. And in the morning, there it was, left out sitting on the chair all night. So it's a tiny, petty example of not listening to the prompting of Supersoul. What to speak of something more important, something that perhaps Krishna is trying to tell me perhaps in my response to my deep questions or prayers. So when we exercise the muscle of deep listening, then it becomes easier to listen again and again. And when we don't, then those inner muscles, like any other muscles, they weaken. Kirtan is a call and response. It's a practice of call and response. But our prayer, our japa, our service is also a practice of our call. And then it requires deep listening. Srila Prabhupada so often told us, just try to hear and also try to see the hand of Krishna moving, acting in this world. I was listening to a recording of Srila Prabhupada speaking, and he was saying, see the waves moving on the ocean. The waves are not actually moving. It's the wind that's moving the waves. And it's the moon acting on the tides. And behind the moon or the sun, there's Krishna, who is the light of the sun and the moon. So this is bhakti, trying to see Krishna, the cause of all causes, acting behind all, even mundane circumstances. Where's the balance between fulfilling my desires and understanding the will of providence, Krishna's desire in any given circumstance or situation? Krishna is the Lord in our hearts, and he's always listening to us. If we desire to advance on the path of bhakti and take shelter of him as a loving father, he'll send what's best for us, because he's awarding everyone's desires since time immemorial, he says. So we have the freedom to desire, but we're not independent actors able to fulfill our own desires. I really like this thought from the great theologian Reinhold Niebuhr. He says, man or woman is an individual, but we are not self-sufficing. The law of our nature is love, a harmonious relation of life to life in obedience to the divine center and source of our lives. This law is violated when we seek to make ourselves the center and source of our own lives. So I believe that this alignment, this what he calls harmonious relation of life to life in obedience to the divine center and source of our lives, this is Krishna consciousness. To be so malleable to the will of Lord Krishna, in the hand of Lord Krishna, malleable like clay. Imagine Krishna is the potter and we are the clay, and he can make us into whatever beautiful object he desires if we cooperate with his desire for us. Some people use the term co-create. What does it really mean? In business, it might mean to create something working in partnership with someone else. But if we take it spiritually, it implies cooperation or synergy with the energy of others, or even divine energy. In that sense, to co-create means to embrace positive influences and the assistance of all beings in your universe as your partner. It's different from an ego-driven co-creation. Co-creating is about aligning with our authentic nature, being open to inner wisdom and guidance, and trying to follow it wholeheartedly. So in Srimad Bhagavatam, 1st canto, 16th chapter, 16th verse, Sukadev Goswami is talking about how Maharaj Parikshit became overwhelmed with devotion when he heard about his grandfathers, the Pandavas, and how they were so, again, malleable to the will of Krishna. The Sanskrit word used is snigdeshu. They were malleable to the will of the Lord. Let me read this beautiful verse in its translation. Maharaj Parikshit heard that out of his causeless mercy, Lord Krishna, who is universally obeyed, rendered all kinds of service to the malleable sons of Pandu by accepting posts ranging from chariot driver to president of the Rajasuya sacrifice, to messenger, friend, night watchman, etc., according to the will of the Pandavas, obeying them like a servant and offering obeisances like one younger in years. When he heard this, Maharaj Parikshit became overwhelmed with devotion to the lotus feet of the Lord. In Srila Prabhupada's purport, he explains that this idea of being malleable a little bit more. He says, the Pandavas were so malleable to the will of the Lord that they could sacrifice any amount of energy for the service of the Lord, and by such unalloyed determination, they could secure the Lord's mercy in any shape they desired. So what about us? We're crying for the mercy of the Lord, but the Pandavas, by becoming so malleable like clay in the hands of Krishna, they could secure his mercy in any shape they desired. So his mercy became like clay in their hands, and Lord Krishna became their own malleable property. Such a beautiful reciprocation, don't you think? Pure bhakti. So better than trying to become God would be to become so beloved, like the Pandavas, like all pure and realized devotees to the Supreme Person, that we could actually have that beautiful reciprocation to Lord Krishna, who is all powerful, all pervading, and at the same time all merciful, wanting to give all credit to his dear devotees and just wanting to be a servant of his devotees. So the path of bhakti is a radical personalism. It's a radical reciprocation between Krishna, or God by any name, and ourselves. And the quintessential verse of Srimad Bhagavatam that defines this kind of pure love is Savai punsam paro dharma yato bhaktir adhoksaje ahoitiki apritiyata yayatma suprasidati. What is pure love? What can truly satisfy the self? Uninterrupted love for the transcendent Lord, unmotivated by selfish desires. But we think, I have too many desires that are too important to me, to my career, to my family. I can't do that. But you know what? Wherever we are, Krishna will find us and herd us back, like he herds his wayward cows when they wander away. Krishna's mercy is like a GPS. Even if we're lost, like the king who's being described in this verse, Krishna's mercy, like a merciful GPS, will find us there and reroute us back to the path of his lotus feet. It's a reciprocation between our desire and his mercy. What is my desire? How wayward do I really want to get? How much do I long for that sweet reciprocation with him? Srila Prabhupada says in the purport to that verse, this relation of servant and served is the most congenial form of intimacy. One can realize it as devotional service progresses. Then he says, even in the present state of material existence, this will gradually give one the clue to actual life and please us to complete satisfaction. This is Krishna's reciprocation that's always available to us. Here's a very interesting letter that Srila Prabhupada wrote to Rupanuga Prabhu in 1977. Srila Prabhupada says, as for the deprogrammers in the Philadelphia area, let us take precaution. Let the GBC decide how to handle it. Let the deprogrammers do their best, and we will do ours. And everything depends on Krishna. If we simply remain sincere devotees, then, and he quotes something here, all glories to the Pandavas on whose side Krishna is fighting. And then he continues, he says, for Krishna was on Arjuna's side. Otherwise, Arjuna was like a fig compared to the generals on the other side. Arjuna said it was like crossing a sea of crocodiles. If someone says, well, Krishna helped Arjuna, but that was long ago, we say that Krishna is here now. The devotees are here now, and the business is the same. It has nothing to do with material time. This is faith, that Krishna is here right now. If I give him my best, he will personally carry what I lack. He will give me the understanding by which I can come to him. And that if we desire this reciprocation of loving service, this most congenial form of intimacy, then he can show us, even us, his special mercy. He who's dwelling in our hearts, seeing in our hearts, he can destroy with the shining lamp of knowledge the darkness born of ignorance. So this idea of providence, these saintly but kind of disappointed brahmanas in this verse, they had their plan to give mercy to the king in a certain way, using their mantras and their rituals to the best of their abilities, but it just didn't work out the way they'd planned. And that's all right. Can we also learn to see and bow to the will of providence in our lives? It's said that the moment one definitely commits oneself, then providence moves too. All sorts of things occur to help one that never would otherwise have occurred. The other day I heard a podcast with our dear Rasanath, our Bhakti Center community member and great teacher. He was telling a story. He was working as an investment banker on Wall Street, and at the same time he was living in the ashram with the brahmacharis. But everything he'd envisioned for his life was not working out as he'd planned. So he came back to the ashram late one night. Everyone was asleep, but Sachinandan Swami was there visiting New York at the time, and he was the only one still awake. So Maharaj looked at Rasanath and he said, blessings are winds that cause ships to change their direction, cause them to sail in a direction different from where they had planned to go. So can we also try to be more open to the blessing winds of destiny? In one of Srila Prabhupada's last purports to Srimad Bhagavatam 10th canto, spoken while he was lying on his deathbed, while Jayadvaita Swami was holding the microphone up to Srila Prabhupada's lips, Srila Prabhupada said, everything is moving, acting under the supreme desire of Krishna. This consciousness is called Krishna Consciousness. So this radical personalism, this radical reciprocation means to be malleable, to be willing to be moved by Krishna's will, by the hand of destiny, rather than fighting tooth and nail as we so often do. Deep listening means to try to be open to receive and hear the promptings of Supersoul, to pause and to try to be more aware, to hear our own inner voice, also try to pause to honor others as well, and to by deeply hearing them, right? To have a receiver's mind and heart rather than a calculating achiever's mind, to try to deeply hear Krishna, our supreme and original source, who is fulfilling everyone's desires since time immemorial. What is the will of providence for me in my life? Today, my dear Lord Krishna, how can I hear you better today? How can I serve you better today? How can I please you more today? So, in conclusion, these are a few thoughts on becoming open to becoming aligned with the will of providence. some thoughts on being malleable to the will of Lord Krishna, some thoughts on faith, and some thoughts on the reciprocation between Krishna and his beloved devotees, even us, even now, even today. So before concluding, I just wanted to say that today is Rukmini Dvadasi, the appearance day of Rukmini Devi. She is the first wife of Lord Krishna in Dwarka, and she's mentioned in Nectar of Devotion by Srila Rupa Goswami as an example of impudence in ecstatic love for Krishna. Everyone knew that she was meant to marry Lord Krishna, but her older brother arranged for her to be married to his friend Sisupal. Rukmini wanted nothing to do with Sisupal, so she wrote a letter to Krishna asking him to come and kidnap her. So this is an example of impudence in ecstatic love. Later, after their marriage, Krishna began to tease her, wanting to see her get angry, saying that she was a great princess and that he was not equal to her and that now she should choose a more suitable husband. She was so overwhelmed and bewildered by his words that she fainted and fell down like a banana tree blown over by a strong wind. So then Krishna manifests 2 extra arms, 4 arms, and he picks her up and caresses her face with his lotus hand. Then Rukmini defeats him. She defeats his tricky words in so many beautiful verses. You might like to read that today. It's Srimad Bhagavatam, 10th canto, chapter 60, called Krishna Teases Rukmini. I wanted to share one of those verses where Rukmini Devi gives us all some straight talk. She says to Lord Krishna, "A woman who fails to relish the fragrance of the honey of your lotus feet becomes totally befooled, and thus she accepts as her husband or lover a living corpse covered with skin, whiskers, nails, head hair, and bodily hair, and filled with flesh, bones, blood." And then she goes on and makes it more graphic. I won't tell you the rest. But in the purport, Srila Viswanath Chakravarti Thakur says, "He indeed should become one's husband who can remove all fear. Sri Krishna is the real husband for all women at all times." Jai Shri Krishna, Jai Shri Rukmini Devi. So thank you all so much. What was important for you here? What's a takeaway for you today? Is there something you'd like to share with someone today or tomorrow? Or maybe you have some questions.
Thank you very much, Rukmini, for accepting to speak on this auspicious day. We're very grateful to hear from you. Very excellent points on especially knowing the will of providence. I have some questions. Before that, I would like to know if others have any questions or thoughts that they would like to share. Please feel free to unmute yourself. Adi Pushpo, you wanted to share something?
Talk about putting aside our own priorities and intentions. But it's not that we approach Krishna directly. We were listening to Prabhupada's memories recently, and one devotee said, "People say they can't get close to Prabhupada." And he said, "I've always found that people avoid getting close to Prabhupada because he might ask them to do something that they don't want to do. Not that he's not accessible, right? And we trick ourselves like that, you know. We use this expression all the time: guru in a box. Here's my toaster, here's my cell phone, here's my guru. Haribol. Open the box. Haribol. Close the box. Don't let him talk to you. You know, so we put aside our desire and ask our spiritual master, "How can I serve you?" Right? There's that one quote from the Bhagavad Gita where all these instructions about different kinds of sacrifice, the modes of material nature, the demoniac nature, and then at one point, Arjuna says, "Whoa, I got it. What do you want me to do?" Right? And then it's very clear. And you can't unring that bell once he tells you to do something. So it's a little scary, but where's the, if we actually desire someone in our life who's worthy of our complete trust and obedience, and Krishna will send, and then we have to choose whether to be a disciple and let the spiritual master speak into our life.
Thank you. Beautiful. Is there a question in there somewhere or just a realization?
Just a contribution.
Thank you. Thank you. Very beautiful. We don't want to keep our guru in a box. We want him to be present in our lives and to give us intelligence how to act. Thank you. Very profound. Very profound. I know that that's very, very true what you've said. Thank you. Are there any other thoughts or realizations or takeaways or questions?
I see Nandini Kishori.
Nandini Kishori.
Every word you spoke was so choicest of the best of the, it was so concise and eloquent.
Thank you.
I really appreciate that. If you wanted to share your notes, I would be very grateful. And your own life, you have been selling as the winds of Krishna's blessings flow. It's such a great example. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Well, I know you've always been someone who's been very eager to serve the desires of your Guru Maharaj. So that's a beautiful realization. I actually remember a time in Vrindavan when the temple didn't open when it was supposed to open. And Prabhupada was so angry. He was in the mood of Nrsingadev, and everyone was trying to avoid him because he was so angry at that time. So yeah, we want to welcome his voice and his advice in our lives and our hearts. Thank you.
Hi, Krishna, Rukmini Mataji, Dandavat Pranams. What awesome is this for us to be able to hear you on this auspicious day as well.
Is this Athena?
Yes.
Hariva, my obeisances to you. Hariva.
This is, wow, I feel like there's so much for me to say. I really, really appreciate just how introspective and thoughtful you are. And even when you bring up the concept of deep listening, it's just from the very start. It's something that really resonated with me because as an outspoken, talkative person, I've really realized I've never really listened to myself and as you said, Paramatma in the heart, the super soul, but even trying to work on really truly listening to others without interjecting right away with a comment or a thought. And it's just something that it's funny that resonates with me. But even throughout, I've always really appreciated your ability to bring in modern concepts, like deep listening, co-creation, even turning off the calculated analytical mind, and all things that we wouldn't really read in Shastra, but those are concepts that are really relatable and relevant. But I truly just love all your examples that you use to illustrate your points. Just from what Srila Prabhupada says, perhaps you're reading a letter or something that he had said to his disciples, to Rasanath, the example to the Pandavas, and I just took away so much from your session, and gives me so much to think about and sit with. And if I could truly follow in your example and just being very thoughtful and introspective, and that's something I'm personally working on myself. So thank you so much.
Thank you. You know, as we grow older, we think we know so much. We think we know everything, and we don't take that pause. We lose that mood of a little child. And so we're so often just ready to inject our own advice or willing, ready to give the solution when someone's speaking, but to just take that pause and really try to hear our source, try to hear our own inner selves, and try to hear others as well, and try to honor them in that way. And it builds so much trust, and we can learn to trust Krishna in our own hearts as well. So thank you so much. So important. People, what is the most precious thing you can give to another person? Your attention. Your attention. People, what do people want? People want to be seen. People want to be heard more than anything else. Companies have studied what can we give to our employees so they'll feel more happy working for our company. Should we put in a swimming pool, daycare, raise the salaries, bonuses, vacations? Well, people want to be heard more than they want anything else. They want to be seen and heard and honored for who they are. So thank you so much. Any other thoughts?
Yeah.
Hare Krishna.
Hare-
This is Loka Devi. Rukmini Prabhu, thank you for a beautiful class. I guess I had a question. There were some of us that were reading this morning. We chant in the morning, and we were reading from the Living Name, Satchidananda Swami's book, and we're on the section talking about Seva Dharma, and so I was really caught by your description of the malleability of the Pandavas, how malleable they were, and realizing that it's that malleability that's a symptom of the strong desire to serve. So I wonder, do you have any thoughts for us or advice as to how do we nurture that desire to serve? How do we truly become malleable in wanting to go the direction that Krishna is taking us, that those winds are blowing?
Right. Great question. Thank you. Pray for it. Practice it. Practice being malleable. Practice and pray. When someone asks someone in your life, asks you to do a little something. How about, I think we're all so rigid, right? What's the opposite of malleable? To be so rigid and fixed in what I have to do today, what I'm going to do, my plan, my program, my situation. But to just open up and give space, give pause, and try to hear deeply the people in our lives, try to hear Krishna, try to hear our own selves. And if Krishna's sitting in our hearts, he's waiting to see, what do you really want, right? Since time immemorial, he's been traveling with us. What do you want? So if we tell him, I want to become malleable to your will like the Pandavas, so beautiful. This beautiful Sanskrit word sounds so thick. Even the word sounds so thick. Snigdeshu, right? It just sounds like it's thick with honey. So someone has something in the chat I just want to mention before we run out of time, asking when is the next Urban Devi. It's today, and we've changed the time. It's 12 noon today until 1:30, and my wonderful, wonderful god sister Mandakini will be sharing her adventures in Russia today. So please don't miss Urban Devi if you're a Devi, and join us. So sorry, are there more questions?
Yeah, if I can ask, Hare Krishna, thank you so much. I think listening to
Who
you.
is this? Could you say your name, please?
It's Rasamurti. I'm a disciple of Bhakti Tirtha Swami.
Wonderful. Haribol.
Hare Krishna. Actually, your class brings tears to my eyes because
you're bringing tears to my eyes. Actually, when you mention Bhakti Tirtha Swami, that brings tears to everyone's eyes. But sorry.
Yeah.
Oh.
I have one thing that I've been a faithful practitioner. I have done my very best to just serve, to follow the instructions of all the teachings I've received in the past 20 years that I've been initiated. I'm at a point in my time when I'm reflecting what to do next. I work as a teacher, I'm not married or anything like that. I feel I've been sincere in all my endeavors to be selfless, to do good, to follow my path. And for the past year and a half, I've done exactly what you're sort of saying, sort of tried to be malleable, to see what the Lord wants from me. But my question is, having tried to kind of be in the space to observe the canvas, to see what needs to be changed, I feel there's been a lot that's come. I've seen that there's all these amazing spirit guides everywhere guiding us. So my question is, how, I understand the concept that the soul speaks and guides you, but at the same point, how can you know when you need to make a decision? It's like, it's not like Krishna's my order supplier. He's not, it's not like, Krishna, I'm not going to do anything because, I'm just going to wait for you to tell me within my heart what needs to be done. I have to make some effort, So how do you balance that? Like, how do you balance listening to your heart, trying to be sincere, trying to follow the instructions? Yeah.
So Krishna, thank you for your deep sincerity. So Krishna gives us intelligence, but we also have to be sensitive to his prompting, this idea of co-create, right? So maybe we have an idea of something I think I should do, I'd like to do. And maybe I try it using my best intelligence, my best resources, right? And I try, but I run up against a brick wall. And then I try again, and again I run up against a brick wall. And I try again, and somehow maybe I should be sensitive to, maybe I should not be going in this direction. Maybe there's another direction that Krishna's telling me to go in. Maybe some uncharted territory. Maybe some path less chosen, right? So we try our best using our best intelligence, and this is real ego. Like someone asked in the chat, what's the difference between fatalism and being observing the hand of destiny? So we have our true ego trying to reflect that I am an eternal living being, an eternal jiva soul. My nature is light and knowledge and wisdom. So acting in that true ego, asking for the guidance of Krishna, asking, he's the source of remembrance, knowledge, and forgetfulness. He's waiting to see, what do you want? Do you want forgetfulness? Do you want me to stand back? Do you want Krishna in a box? Do you want Guru Dev in a box? No. Do you want him to stand back, or do we want him to be active in our lives and to give us that prompting? Maybe instead of this way, maybe you should try going that way. So it's a reciprocation. It's a radical reciprocation. It's a radical personalism, coupling our co-creation, our desires, and Krishna's desire for what's best for us. And if we really think of him, I love the Psalm, the Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. So I think we're like little cows, right? And we're wayward, and Krishna's herding those cows back into trying to go back to the village of Vrindavan. So we're so wayward. But if we can think of Krishna as my trusted shepherd, as my trusted father, then we will trust and know that he knows what's best for us. And so we have to pause, step back, and listen deeply, and pray to hear, because maybe we've been ignoring for so long. Maybe those inner muscles, those listening muscles, haven't been exercised enough. So this is the path to deep listening, to deep reciprocation, to deep personalism.
Yeah. Thank you very much. When everything just ends, if I may just ask you one question personally, if time allows, but it's okay if you're not able to. I don't want to keep everybody else from everything else.
Maybe we should, because I know Bhakti Center, the deity doors open at 8:00. How is that working over Zoom?
Currently, we are not showing darshan. You can go as long as you have time.
Okay, maybe we should let someone else ask a question, and then if there's time, you can ask yours. Is that all right?
Perfect. Thank you.
Okay. Maybe someone else has something they'd like to share or ask. So we don't have to be concerned with the deity darshan opening. And
yeah, because I'm here.
Okay.
We are not showing these.
Okay, very good. Anyone else have a takeaway or a realization?
I do.
Hare Krishna. I'm so sorry.
I'm sorry. This is Angelika here, and it's rather a quick question. When you were sharing this story of your remembrance of forgetting this container at night.
Oh, how embarrassing.
Oh, it happens to me all the time, so you're definitely not the only one. But I was just having a very simple question, meaning that like you mentioned that it was Paramatma's prompting, and I was wondering, like, is it that all our remembrance?
Oh, Haribol! How are you, stranger?
Sorry, is it that all of our remembrance, or that all that our mind brings up, is coming from Paramatma? I mean, I would definitely say that for me, especially being so conditioned and so impure, I would be very wary of trusting that. But I know that we're
good question. Thank you.
such advanced
So
devotees.
the practice of bhakti is a practice of sharpening the sword, sharpening the discernment in our consciousness so that we can discern what is the voice of my higher self. What is the voice that I want to listen to? We've all heard this example of the two dogs in our hearts fighting. They're both hungry. Which one will we feed? There's the voice of the lower self, there's the voice of the higher self. So by the process of chanting the holy name, by the process of serving, by the process of all the different practices of Krishna consciousness, this is sharpening the sword of our discernment. And then when a little voice comes up that's really not the voice we want to listen to, you'll get that alarm will go off and think, whoa, maybe that's not really what a voice I want to listen to, you know? So this is the responsibility of each one of us to develop this discernment. It's said that discretion is the better part of valor. So maybe we want to become a valorous, good devotee, but before valor, we have to learn discernment. So this is very, very important. And this is wisdom. And Krishna gives us that wisdom if we desire it. If we want to ignore his voice and go on hearing the barking of that lower dog, that lower self, then he'll stand back, okay. What comes to mind is Draupadi, the story of Draupadi, when they're trying to disrobe her in that horrible assembly, right? She's trying to hold her clothes on, and she's looking to her husbands, and she's looking to Bhishma Dev, and she's looking to all of them. And then, those resources of this world are not helping her. And then she puts her arms up and she cries to Krishna. So we have to, Krishna was holding back, right? He's waiting to see, was Draupadi going to call for me? Or was she going to keep calling for her own strength or her strong husbands, or et cetera, et cetera. So Krishna's sitting in our hearts. We can pray for that discernment. We can practice. So it's by practice, by detachment, right? How do we extricate ourselves from that banyan tree that you can't even see where it begins and where it ends? By determination and by detachment, and taking that pause to deeply listen and pray for that. Pray to Krishna for that. Somebody else have another realization or question or takeaway? I hope that was a little bit helpful.
Yes, it definitely was. I know that Atina had a question earlier.
She had a question and she asked a question, but maybe there's someone else who hasn't asked a question so far.
Hare Krishna, Rukmini Prabhu, it's Andrea.
Hare
Thank
Krishna,
you so
Andrea.
much for joining us this morning on your namesake's auspicious day. And with her in mind, I was wondering, I love when you share her story about how you always make the point of sharing that she was the one that was driving the chariot as kind of like a co-creator in her kidnapping, quote unquote, kidnapping by Krishna.
Right.
And I just wonder, my question kind of goes with that idea of like, how do we balance us being a chariot driver and helping Krishna and knowing, like, so I guess I don't know if I'm being too obtuse, but like when we have to make a decision, balancing like how much of it is our endeavor and how much of it is us stepping back and letting Krishna do his part, and how do we, I guess it goes back to that word that you're always saying, discernment, like how do we get that discernment? Thank you so much.
Thank you. Well, you know, I always think when we get these balance questions, I always think of being on a surfboard, because, you know, you're on a surfboard at any minute, there's a wave coming from a different direction. And our lives are like that. So it requires focus, right? It requires deep focus. It requires deep dependence on Krishna, because we're so tiny. You know, we have our ego. We're trying to align our true ego with Krishna's will. But I think it's important to think, to take that pause and think, what will be the best for everyone in this for everyone involved in this situation? Not only me, what's the best for my partner in this situation? What's the best for everyone involved? How will this impact the other people in this situation? Not only me. And is this what Krishna really wants for me in the long term? So I think, you know, the motive passion is that we're so ready to charge forward to be valiant, right? But this discernment, this better part of valor, is to stop and pause and to really look at the situation and really try to make sure that all the voices in the situation are being heard. My own inner voice, Krishna's voice, the other voices in my life, and how can all parties be benefited in the best possible way? Because the result of passion is distress, right? If we take that pause and act in goodness, then we will get that illumination of goodness. And goodness is the airport that we have to go to fly into transcendence. So if we want to approach the Supreme Pure, we have to endeavor for that purity. And that purity comes by our endeavor, but it comes by His grace more than anything. If that's our desire, He will give us illumination, how to come forward to Him, how to come closer to Him. So I hope that's helpful.
Yes, it is. Thank you so much, as always.
And I see you were very sneaky and you put something in the chat. So thank you for that.
I wasn't going to say anything. Unfortunately, I have the bad influence of Gauravani. I remember him.
Yeah.
I want everybody to co-create with you as well.
Yeah, more embarrassment, but thank you very much. Does anyone else have another question or realization or feedback or takeaway?
Hare Krishna, Rukmini Prabhu. This is Kunti.
Kunti Devi.
Thank you so much. Hare Krishna. Thank you so much for this amazing class.
Thank you.
My walk away is that you emphasized on focus, determination, and practice. Those are the three main points that I'm walking away with today, and I'll meditate on these points. Thank you so very much.
And being malleable, right?
Yes.
Imagine, you know, I'm looking at my sister on this call, and her husband is a ceramic artist. So that, you know, I'm thinking of this word malleable, but there are different kinds of clay. If we want to be malleable to the will of Krishna, we could be like that most malleable of all clays. And then what happens by that radical reciprocation, Krishna becomes malleable to our desires also. Maybe there's something that I've been wanting, and Krishna just never seems to fulfill my desire. Well, maybe if I just put it on a shelf right now, put it in brackets for right now, and try to do what His will for me at this moment, then someday, sometimes when you come back to it years later or moments later, Krishna does fulfill that desire when you've given up the desire. Like Dhruva Maharaj, right? When Vishnu gave him that kingdom, he didn't want that kingdom. But now, you prayed for this kingdom, now you rule this kingdom for thousands of years. So sometimes that fulfillment of our desires comes when we give up that desire to execute Krishna's desire.
Thank you. Beautiful.
Thank you. Anyone else? I see this nice devotee wearing pink who has her second question. If there's no one else who has another question, we can let this person who's wearing pink like Krishna's lotus feet.
Oh, is that?
That's you. What is your name?
Oh, it's Rasamurti here.
Rasamriti.
Yes. Yeah. I mean, I guess mine was a much more personal question. I give you an example. Not last year, but the last year before, 2 years ago, I raised money for this deaf girl to have a cochlear implant. The parents somehow trusted me to raise money for this girl. And as Guru Maharaj always told me, Bhakti Tirtha Maharaj, he said, just be selfless in life. And so since the parents trusted me to raise money for this girl, I said internally to Guru Maharaj, I'm doing this as an offering to you, Within 3 months, I had £33,000.
Nice.
And everything that happened to me was because I was listening to my guide inside, where I went, who I went. The person I met at the opticians was an audiologist. The lady I met at the bus stop, was something connected to the ear. The person that I talked to on the train was working for a deaf theatre. Everything to do with those 3 months was to do with deafness. Everything.
Circumstance aligns, right? Circumstance aligns.
It was just aligning everything. Walking out of lift, I met somebody who used to do some charity work in Africa, where these girls from, and she told me about all these medical professionals that can help in Africa to realign her hearing once she has a cochlear implant. Everything to do with those 3 months was to do with ear for this girl and the money that I was raising. I've been on similar fundraising missions of recently. I've been raising £1 million for a nursing college, and everything is aligned to that. And look, the point I'm trying to get at is I have been listening to what my heart tells me, and I have been listening and I've been following. But when it comes to something personal for me, namely that of marriage, I am 44 years of age. And I've just been waiting for universe to come together to present that partner for me. I didn't want it to be something that I seek, I find, because I'm not sure if that's the Lord's desire. I grew up without my parents in a very abusive house. And, as a 10-year-old, I was very strong that my purpose here is to find God. So I was as a child, as a young person, all I've wanted is a deep relationship with God all my life. So sometimes I think, okay, for having a partner is not, maybe it's not the Lord's plan for me. But at the same time, it's difficult because I am at a time in this womanly body where I do crave children. I'm a teacher, so I get to repose my nurturing side. And I'm just wondering what I should do next.
Okay.
Right.
Well, it sounds like Krishna's already been partnering with you in many ways, because you seem to have a gift for fundraising to help others. So Krishna's already been partnering with you in many ways. And, I was thinking of this last thing I read from Viswanath Chakravarti Thakur, where he says, Krishna he should indeed become one's husband who can remove all fear. Sri Krishna is the real husband for all women at all times. So of course, that's on a very, very high level that we can't necessarily live like that. But you can put that desire of yours at Krishna's feet and at the same time continue doing your wonderful services. There's a funny thing that I'll tell you a funny story. One lady was asking Radhanath Swami about her marriage. She was very stressed that she could find a husband. And in a very innocent way, like a child, he said, is looking for a husband a full-time service? So that was a very interesting response. So what that means is continue doing all your wonderful services, all your work in the world, and all the things you do for Lord Krishna and others. And at the same time, you can put that little prayer of yours in your Anjali and put it at Krishna's feet and leave it up to him, right? you just put it in your Anjali and put it at Krishna's feet and leave it up to him. And then observe the signs that come in your life. Maybe the right person will come along and maybe won't, but he won't. But ultimately, Krishna is that real husband that we can all put our faith in, whether we're men or women or whoever we are. The one who can remove all fear. This is the real husband of all men, all women, all living beings, right? So on Rukmini Dvadasi, we should try to follow the beautiful example of Rukmini Devi in her impotence and her love for Krishna and her faith in Krishna. So I think maybe we should end here. But thank you all so very, very much. Thank you for being here. And thank you for sharing this time in reciprocation with Krishna and his devotees.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you very
Rukmini
much.
Devi
Hare
ki
I
jai.
bless Rukmini Devi ki jai.
Jai.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Thank you so much for accepting the request. Thank you very much. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Jai Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Thank you so much. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna
Hare
to all of you.
Hare Bol.